Never been across the history of humanity any respect put on the name of a promiscuous female ever.
No. For the children,
or cheating. Sorry, you think that cheating is worse than physical abuse?
For the children, yes.
The only value you really add is arguing with men. Is breaking us down. Is like, oh, your point.
Look, women have the privilege to be stupid, and we don't. Nobody claps for broke men.
No man has ever said, I love her for her brain.
Hustlers University.
Hustlers University.
Hustlers University.
You are taught by millionaires.
Remember early on in the show when I asked, going here and what makes you special?
Even though it's
When you actually stream on your own,
Hello?
Howdy.
Howdy.
Honey, the new neighbor invited you over for a drink at 8 tonight. I said you'd go.
So, what I think this movie Friendship does that is so interesting is that it doesn't necessarily look at the symptoms of what this so-called male loneliness epidemic is. It doesn't really look at the consequences. It doesn't really look at the online consequences. What it instead does is it attempts to humorize and hold a mirror up to what the real problem is.
Men are not just lonely when it comes to dating, they're lonely when it comes to friendship too. According to Vox, Americans are currently in a friendship recession, and men are being hit the hardest. The percentage of men who reported having at least 6 close friendships fell in half since the 90s. 1 in 5 men say they have no close friendships. Looking at all these statistics, the explosion of figures like Andrew Tate is not surprising at all.
Without saying it, this movie essentially argues, in my opinion at least, that all the stuff we see online about MGTOW, incels, the Manosphere, alpha males, all of this stuff essentially is a reaction by a small minority of the population of men who have the loudest voices to a real problem. And what friendship attempts to do is to return to the core of the problem, which is ultimately that men, or a lot of men, feel alone, feel lonely, and don't know how to make friends. They are all in their own way awkward. They are all in their own way having issues that they need to deal with, whether it be friends, family, whether it is in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. They don't understand how to go about saying, this is what I'm struggling with, and I would like to tell you about it. Now, what's so interesting to me is that the film treats each character in this film, played by Tim Robinson, Kate Mara, and Paul Rudd, these 3 leads, who are essentially the entire cast, I would say. What is so interesting about them is that they are all sort of messed up in their own way. They all have an issue of their own that they're dealing with, whether it's self-image, a health issue, or just loneliness. In some ways, you can probably say they're not dealing with it correctly, and the film gives them sympathy for that, and then holds a candle up to each of them to say they're falling apart under the weight of their issue, and as a result, they're not able to really look at the person next to them and go, they're dealing with this, can I help them? This movie essentially alleges, in my opinion, that whether it is the cool guy, the woman, or the lonely guy, they all are hiding something or have an issue that maybe the rest of the world isn't aware of or is aware of. They need help to get out of that, and without help, they are basically screwed. They are basically fucked and will leave. In my opinion, the face of not understanding is Kate Mara. From the outset, we see that Kate Mara is a cancer survivor, and she also plays Tim Robinson, or Craig's wife, in this film. She plays this to a T. She plays this character of someone who is sort of checked out of their marriage and isn't altogether sympathetic to Craig's problems, and a large portion of that, we are led to believe, is because of her cancer. What the film essentially asks Kate Mara to do is to function as a personification of misunderstanding and miscommunication, because she isn't outright going to Tim Robinson and saying, what's the issue you're dealing with? What is it that I need to help you with to get you through this so that we can get back on track with our marriage? Because she isn't doing those things, the film therefore argues that she can't gain that understanding. Now, that is not in any way to say that Tim Robinson's Craig is a good guy or he's a guy without flaws. He is a naive guy. He's slightly ignorant of his wife, and he doesn't understand what her problems are. He lacks the emotional maturity to really engage with her problems at a deep level and to help her through it. But this is another facet that the film basically takes apart. Kate Mara is the face of not thinking there is a problem with your husband whatsoever. You just don't like him. Tim Robinson is the face of being ignorant of the problem with your wife altogether. He doesn't recognize why she's upset about the cancer. He's like, well, it's gone, so why do I care? Paul Rudd's character is the face of self-image issues, and he is consistently struggling with this, and the only person who knows about this, or we are led to believe knows about this, is Tim Robinson. And Tim Robinson basically treats Paul Rudd with unequivocal support, will continuously make him feel like as much of a person as himself, and never draws light to what his issue with self-image is. Through this potential friendship that never really comes about, what we see is this idea that understanding what the other person's problem is at the heart of overcoming it and forging relationships. And if there is not that desire to understand one another, then there can be no forging of paths together. There is simply no road forward for people who do not understand and do not care to understand what one another's problems are. As serious as this may sound so far, I have to say that I do think this film is pretty funny. Tim Robinson's comedy, I wasn't altogether familiar with his style before this. This is my first interaction with him, and I will say it's not entirely for me, the comedy, but the awkwardness of his comedy, the fact that it was ever present in this film, I took so much out of that anyways. Thinking about, why is this awkward? What is making this awkward? Is it just Tim Robinson? Is Kate Mara awkward? Is Paul Rudd awkward? Is it the relationship between the characters? Is it the silence? Is it what they're saying? There is so much to think about in relation to that awkwardness. So whether you go into this film and are going, oh, this film's hilarious, or whether you're going, oh, this film is awkward, I think personally there is a lot you can take from this. With that being said, I would not be surprised if 50% of the people that watch this video will come out of this film and go, that was terrible. That's the worst thing I've ever seen. It made me so frustrated. But what Tim Robinson, in my opinion, is so good at in this film, and what everyone, including the director, is so good at in this film, is holding a light up to typical suburban, mostly middle class, mostly white people, what their faults are, what is the awkwardness between two people. This film is a weird sort of slice of life drama / comedy. It's not slice of life like, oh, we're just going about our day doing things as everyone does. This is sort of the other side of that, of, well, yeah, I'm going about my day, but I wouldn't like anyone to know how alone I felt, or I wouldn't like anyone to know how I just don't really like my husband or my self-image issues. This film never directly addresses any of those concepts or subjects, but it does imply them through each of these characters so well that when that awkward situation arises, which is pretty consistent, you are able to go, okay, what is the awkwardness in this scene about? Is it about the self-image? Is it about the cancer? Is it about the loneliness? What is it? What is the director trying to portray to me? And the film is excellent at doing that. Now, whilst I've been pretty glowing about this, I will say there are some issues with it. I think the film is, generally speaking, pretty flat cinematography-wise, directing-wise. I think the reason for that is because this takes place mostly in an office or the suburbs, so there isn't very much you can do. I also think that is deliberate to give the actors as much space as possible to work out basically the relationships on the screen and not have the relationships implied through the camera, not have awkward situations implied through camera work, which I actually think is a quite smart decision for a film like this. I do also think some of the narrative decisions, specifically for the ending, I'm not particularly a fan of and feel quite movie tropey and sort of are like, oh, well, we have to have a sort of climactic ending, so it sets up an ending that is climactic, that doesn't really fit. Overall, this is a damn good movie. And this is a film that I think, on some level, most people will relate to. And it sort of takes apart this idea of the manosphere and sort of says, how are any of those solutions that you're suggesting online going to apply to a guy in his mid-40s who lives in the suburbs with his wife and child? How is going, oh, well, yeah, just go out and fuck whores? How is that going to help? That isn't a viable solution that he has. And even if it was a viable solution, it's not a solution. And the film sort of very gently pushes you towards that sort of conclusion without ever saying it directly. What this film is all about is sort of gently saying, here's the issue, and we're just wanting you to understand it. We're not even saying necessarily that you are the solution. We just think that through more understanding, our problems will become collaborative rather than individual. And then that is how we forge paths together. Look at my cool fucking Scream poster.